This evening, we're joined by Joerg Platzer. He's the founder of Room 77, one of the first Bitcoin accepting establishments in the world, and a founding member of the Cryptoeconomics Consulting Group. Joerg, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hello, good evening, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in the cryptocurrency space?
I have a 20-year background, 25-year background in the IT business, but not working as a technician, rather as a conceptioner for interactive branding, strategic corporate communication. I've been working as an information architect for a long time. Out of this also came 20-year background in the hacking and phreaking scene in Germany, which of course led me to crypto technology altogether. So I would call myself a cypherpunk fan and a crypto nerd. Cryptocurrency is a concept that I was aware of since the 90s as something that the future will hopefully bring. When Bitcoin turned up, of course, it was a big moment for me, having realized there it is. So yeah, I jumped right on it.
You've started a couple of different businesses and groups, not necessarily that began focused on cryptocurrency, like Room 77, for example. That didn't start off as a Bitcoin-focused establishment, but it has sort of morphed into something that is tied to Bitcoin because of your affiliation. When you're looking at businesses and opportunities, what is it about Bitcoin that is an opportunity?
Bitcoin, in the first place, is an opportunity for the whole of society to make things easier. Bitcoin, on the other hand, for specific businesses, for existing businesses, it is, of course, an advantage when it comes to accepting digital currencies or digital payments, fast payments, no MasterCard fees, no chargebacks, and so on. But it also, of course, brings a lot of opportunities for young entrepreneurs who, with Bitcoin, can turn their business ideas into reality much easier than going through the legacy system and so on. And it will also, of course, bring up a lot of totally new business opportunities that we are not even aware of yet. Maybe in regards to what is expected as the micro payment revolution and things like that.
Specifically, we're talking about Bitcoin here, but really the question is broadly about cryptocurrencies that are like Bitcoin. Are there any things about it in its current iteration that make it unattractive, or that you think actually detract from the other things that it offers that do make it attractive?
Yeah. First of all, I would like to bring the whole discussion to cryptocurrency altogether, not only Bitcoin. Right now, the biggest obstacle for businesses to accept Bitcoin is indeed the high volatility, which of course can be taken out by services like BitPay or something like that. The overall acceptance in society, the unfolding of the network effect is, of course, still an obstacle. There's too many people waiting that everybody else accept it, and so it is not so easy to spread it over the world right now. We need to give people examples of how easy it is to use cryptocurrency and what advantages it brings. Examples not in theoretical ways, but in practical ways. Applied cryptocurrency, I would say.
I don't think that I explained that question clearly enough. Is there anything built into the Bitcoin protocol itself? Not talking about adoption, not talking about legal or regulatory hurdles, but is there anything core about Bitcoin itself that you feel like the currency would be better off, or the, Bitcoin or cryptocurrency would be in general better off if it wasn't there? Is there anything that makes the package worse?
No. Not that I could think of, no.
I'd like to get your responses to some of these statements. These are not really yes or no if you have more that you want to go into, but they're basically, do you agree with this generally or do you not agree with this? Statement A, person-to-person transactions are desirable.
Absolutely, yes.
Global markets require borderless money in order to be efficient.
Of course they do.
Sensitive financial information is vulnerable in conventional internet payment schemes. For example, when you pay for something with a credit card and your credit card information is transmitted plain text and then stored on someone else's server for however long, that's not an inherently safe relationship.
Of course it is not.
These are the core things about Bitcoin that I think that just about everybody agrees with. But then we get into these other things and it gets to be a little bit more complicated. So on the importance of compliance, I'm going to give you two different potential answers, and I'd like you to tell me which one you align with, what you think about them broadly. So on the importance of compliance, statement A, Bitcoin will succeed regardless of governmental action Or statement B, Bitcoin must be fully integrated and compliant with the existing financial networks to be viable in anything other than the short term?
I would not go for any of these two answers, because if Bitcoin does not succeed, we will see another cryptocurrency succeed. So I cannot say Bitcoin must succeed if we find a fatal flaw in Bitcoin, or if Bitcoin will be co-opted on a political level and the beautiful things you described before would be taken out of Bitcoin, then Bitcoin would be gone. Or it would be a PayPal 2.0, and then the next cryptocurrency still carrying those beautiful characteristics that you just mentioned would turn up, and it would be much more resilient against co-option, or it would not have that flaw that Bitcoin might have that we don't know of yet.
So on cryptocurrency broadly, here are another two statements. Bitcoin's success or failure will determine the fate of other cryptocurrencies. If Bitcoin succeeds, some altcoins will succeed. If Bitcoin fails, altcoins necessarily will fail. Or Bitcoin's experience, whether successful or not, will catalyze new altcoins that adapt and learn from Bitcoin's experience.
Statement B.
So thinking about this from a regulatory standpoint, going back to that for a second, I suspect that you're also going to tell me that you don't think that it really matters what the United States does, and that the United States has the ability to influence itself and what people are able to do in the United States. But broadly speaking, cryptocurrency is not going to be mostly affected by that. Is that about right?
Of course, it does matter what the United States say and do, because they are the leading nation of this planet, especially in political and economical regards, or in political regards in the Western Hemisphere, and in economical regards all over the planet. So whatever happens in the United States does influence what happens in the rest of the world. Of course, if the United States would completely go against Bitcoin, crack down on it, illegalize it, or demand the code to be changed so it can be fully compliant to the legacy financial system, that would not mean that the rest of the world would not adopt Bitcoin the way it exists.
Do you think that cryptocurrency, as we know it now, is compatible, can live alongside the existing system of financial, instruments that we have now?
No, not on a large scale. I've been thinking about this a lot. That is that question, can fiat and cryptocurrency coexist, or are they born enemies and one has to kill the other? The only way I can imagine they could coexist would be if some certain societies, be they geographically defined or demographically defined, for some reason decide that they want to live together using a fiat currency and want to live together in a society where everybody is being surveyed and every transaction is recorded. It's hard for me to imagine that people would want to do that, but we don't know what the future brings. And maybe there's societies that want to have this kind of structure because they feel safer or because they want to work closely together. That is really the only scenario I can imagine in a very far future, that fiat and cryptocurrency can coexist. But then also these societies would probably economically not be as successful as the societies around them. For me, it is really hard to imagine that the fiat money we have today and the kind of financial institutions and regulations do have a chance to survive in the long run.
And do you base any of your business decisions or decisions about which sides of Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies you're going to get involved in based on what you think the regulatory structure will be moving forward? Or is that largely something that you don't concern yourself with?
I don't concern myself with that yet, because in our normal businesses, the government and the financial regulators and the tax office are perfectly fine with the way we use Bitcoin. But of course, I'm concerned about how this will go on, which is something that we really don't know. It is going to be very, very interesting how governments react in the next 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, it definitely seems like something has to change. I mean, so put yourself in the shoes of someone whose job it is to regulate Bitcoin or to try and make it compliant with existing systems. You can pick Germany, you can pick the US, wherever you'd like. Do you think that there actually is an actionable way forward to do this? Or do you think, it's much ado about nothing and it doesn't really matter what's attempted because it doesn't work? There's no way to make it work.
As I mentioned, I don't think there is a way that makes it work, that makes control of cryptocurrency possible. Of course, this is a huge problem for everybody who's into regulation. And also you mentioned people whose job it is to regulate. Yeah, they will have to come to a point where they realize we cannot regulate this.
To kind of summarize what we've been talking about here, if I very much simplify this down, it's more important to use the system as it is, to work with the system as it is, and to make the best use of it possible, given the tools we have at our disposal, than it is to conform to standards that already exist in the legacy currency world, be it governmental or whatever you wanted to apply it to.
Well, it's just not possible to make Bitcoin compliant to the existing system. It's just not possible. That is what we are trying to do over here in Germany when it comes to governmental interactions. And that is why you read all these news in the media about Bitcoin now legal in Germany and Bitcoin now legal tender in Germany, which is all complete misinterpretations of what is going on here. But we are asking the government questions that make them, by answering, understand how impossible it is to put the regulatory corsets or cages that we have around this technology, that make them aware of the fact that even their legal definitions don't make sense anymore in a cryptocurrency world. Look at definitions of money laundering, for example. The law about money laundering in Germany or in Europe basically says whoever hides the source of money is a money launderer. But when I pay somebody, one of my employees in Bitcoin, what we do, of course, they're going to mix their coins because they know that their employer otherwise can see maybe where they spent their money. Only because they don't want me, only because my employees don't want me to see where they spent their wages does not mean that they're money launderers. So all these definitions have to be thought over and defined in a new way. And as I said, that is what we are trying to do over here, ask questions to the government. And we have a very good chance for that here because one of the members of the German parliament, the Bundestag, himself also is somebody who would like to see the central bank system abolished. So he can ask all these questions and the government has to answer him because he is a member of the Bundestag, so they have to answer him. And this is a very interesting process now, asking these questions and seeing how the government struggles in answering them, brings out totally contradictory, mutually contradictory answers. And we hope that this way, understanding can be established with the government that it is just not going to be so easy to put this thing into the regulatory cages and make it compliant.
From a privacy perspective, you brought up a really interesting point there. Do you encourage your employees to mix their coins after you pay them, or is that just something that they do because they have this privacy concern?
I inform them and educate them in how to use Bitcoins securely, how to store them securely, and how to use them. And part of that is, of course, to let them have knowledge about the basic functions of the blockchain and the total transparency that the blockchain offers, which is not a disadvantage of the blockchain and of cryptocurrency, by the way. I see transparency as a big advantage as well. But I don't tell them to mix their coins, but I tell them that this is a possibility, and I tell them what the possibilities are if they don't mix the coins.
Is there any issue right now that you think that the cryptocurrency community really should be focusing on that isn't getting enough attention at this point?
The elections.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. With regards to the Bitcoin Foundation, I think they're up to about 700 members right now, but that's in a community that supposedly has a couple of million people, or at least a couple 100,000. What do you think about the role that the Bitcoin Foundation has played to this point, and where do you see its value or not?
Well, when the Bitcoin Foundation started out, it was perceived as an organization sort of speaking on behalf of the whole global Bitcoin economy and movement. This, of course, is a very, very difficult task. I hardly have ever seen a community with such a diversity of people, characters, and motivations as the Bitcoin community. But that's what it was perceived as when it started out. It did come to a moment that changed a bit so that many people rather saw it as a San Francisco or Silicon Valley or Washington, D.C. business club, more or less catering for itself. I think these elections now are actually the point where the Bitcoin Foundation and the Bitcoin Foundation community is going to decide in which direction to go. I don't think this question is yet answered and decided. I would hope that the Bitcoin Foundation, because it has a very solid basis and there is a few very, very capable people working there and putting their energy and resources in, I would hope that the Bitcoin Foundation turns into something that tries to unify the whole Bitcoin community and that caters globally for the whole Bitcoin economy. That would be my wish.
Joerg Platzer, thank you very much for your time.
Adam, thank you.
Hello, I'm Jeffrey Tucker, Bitcoin enthusiast and host of the upcoming Cryptocurrency Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, October 5th. We've got a marvelously libertarian-infused day of discussion about what is indisputably the future of money, and you are invited. For those of you who can't attend, we've partnered with Let's Talk Bitcoin to offer video conference passes available for government currency and, of course, Bitcoin. For more information, bitcoinvideopass.com.